So hello and welcome to the segment of the COVID-19 UVA Mini-Med School podcast entitled Understanding the COVID-19 Virus. My name is Kunal Agarwal. I'm a fourth-year medical student here at the University of Virginia. So as we all know, COVID-19 is something that's obviously taken over the conversation in most aspects of life, whether it be the world of finance and economics or medical research and just the whole public arena in a sense. As such, understanding what COVID-19 actually is very important in understanding how to combat what's going on and why drastic measures were taken. I'm excited to be here with Dr. Costi Sifri, an infectious disease physician and scientist here at the University of Virginia, to give us a broad view about COVID-19, a little bit about his background. His research focuses on multi-drug resistant organisms and their spread. He has trained at the University of Pennsylvania for his residency, and his infectious disease and research fellowships were both done at Harvard University. So thank you for joining me for this conversation, Dr. Sifri.
Thank you very much, Kunal.
So Dr. Sifri, can you just give us a broad overview about the virus, what it is, just like the basics?
Yeah, happy to. So COVID-19 is caused by a virus called SARS-CoV-2, kind of a mouthful, but to take a step back, maybe I could talk about coronaviruses a little bit. So coronaviruses are a family of viruses, respiratory viruses. There's a total of 7 now, if you include SARS-CoV-2 that cause infection in humans, but they're broadly distributed in the animal kingdom and many mammals, birds as well. They are respiratory viruses for the most part. They can perhaps cause some GI illness, but for the most part, they cause respiratory illness, upper respiratory tract infections, sinus infections, throat infections, things like that, and then occasionally lower respiratory tract infections, pneumonia, bronchitis. So as I said, there's a total of 7. There are 4 cold coronaviruses. The first one was discovered in 1965. And they count for about 35% or so of all common colds. And then over the last 2 decades, there have been now identified 3 novel coronaviruses, 3 high consequence, highly virulent coronaviruses. The first one was SARS-CoV, which was identified in Guangdong province, China, and then actually went to other parts of the world, caused several thousand infections and some deaths. And then went away through infection control measures. Second one was MERS, or MERS-CoV. That was on the Arabian Peninsula. It actually is still circulating there a little bit. We can talk about sort of the intermediate hosts for those. And then finally, SARS-CoV-2, that virus that causes COVID-19, emerged in 2019, hence its name in China.
Okay, and what's so special about this virus that makes it so deadly and such a big deal in today's world?
Yeah, great question, and something that we are still trying to understand and figure out. And this is maybe a little bit true of all these sort of high consequence coronaviruses, SARS-CoV, MERS-CoV, and now SARS-CoV-2. They're all viruses that have jumped into human populations. It's called a spillover event from sort of animal reservoirs, probably bats, sometimes going through an intermediate host. And then they are able to infect humans. They're able to specifically, all of them, bind human receptors that are in our airways, that are able to get into the cells of the respiratory tree. And so there's certainly probably a direct pathologic effect where the virus infects human cells and causes disease. That's certainly known with SARS-CoV-2. And then there is the immune response. So the first thing is, since the human population has not seen these viruses, we don't have sort of innate immunity to them. We have not sort of developed an immune response as a population to these. So they can cause disease. But then when our bodies respond to them, and then we have a robust immune response, or at least it appears to, we can have a very robust immune response, and that in of itself can be damaging. So how much is the virus causing direct disease? How much is our immune system responding to that infection and causing disease is a matter of some discussion and debate. And it also informs sort of where people are working, where people are going in terms of treatment.
Okay. So if so to summarize just a bit, is it's not only a novel virus that, you know, the population hasn't also seen, but also incites a very big immune response in the host, and that can cause all the issues that we're seeing, not only the virus, but our own bodies in a sense.
That's exactly right. And so, and as I
Okay.
said, that's our approach to trying to treat it as we're sort of thinking about therapeutics. Some of them are specifically targeting how the virus works, how it replicates, trying to shut down virus replication. And others are trying to either, you know, with a hammer or perhaps with some intelligence, trying to dampen or modify sort of the immune system so it doesn't over respond to infection. So
Okay.
that tends to be sort of the approaches in terms of treatment.
Okay. And what are some of the common ways that it's transmitted from person to person? Yeah.
Yeah, so like all respiratory viruses, there are, you know, probably some pretty common pathways, and they're, you know, respiratory viruses can be transmitted by droplets, by surfaces. We can talk about that. They're called fomites. And then finally, by airborne transmission. There's potentially some other theoretical ways things can be transmitted, you know, between mothers and babies and organ transplants and things like that. But those are going to be the predominant ways that, you know, respiratory virus is transmitted. And if you take a look at what we can understand epidemiologically from this virus, the predominant way that SARS-CoV-2, the cause of COVID-19, is being transmitted is person-to-person spread. By and large through droplets, through coughing and sneezing, probably even talking, particularly if, you know, if transmission's occurring before people are sick, those types of activities. And that's really important because it lets us know how to, you know, how to protect ourselves from infection. So this probably do contribute some, and we're going to talk about that, I think, in terms of potential transmission. It's probably secondary to droplets, you know, according to our public health experts. And the final way is aerosols. That's receives a lot of attention, particularly in the medical setting where you're doing things that potentially could cause airborne transmission through aerosols, things like medical procedures where we're doing a bronchoscopy or doing things that sort of mechanically lead to small, they're called droplet nuclei, but very, very small particles that can dry in the air and linger in the air for hours.
Okay. And on which surfaces does the virus last longest? Like if I was to go to the grocery store and pick up something like let's say a piece of fruit that someone who might have had COVID touched prior to, like, how long would the virus survive on that?
Yeah, so there's been some good studies on that. One particularly out of from the NIH that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine that showed that the survival of this virus can be for maybe about 3 or 4 hours on like a metal surface like copper, which has antimicrobial properties. If you take a look at like stainless steel, that can be, or plastic, that can be, you know, much longer, on the order of 2 or 3 days. Cardboard about a day. So it can survive on surfaces for those periods of times. But, you know, I just also note that just survival doesn't necessarily mean transmissibility. So it's important information to understand that it can survive on surfaces, but, you know, does that survival equate to risk of transmission? That's a little bit less clear.
Okay. And how should the public take steps to limit the spread? Whether, like, obviously besides wearing masks, but like, are there certain wipes, or what's the best way to protect themselves and their loved ones?
Yeah, great question. So if we talk about how it's transmitted, I think the first thing before we talk about, you know, how wipes and those types of things, you know, what role they play, I think the first thing to say is just sort of what you were getting to in terms of masks, is to understand that the major way of transmission is going to be person-to-person spread, usually in close contact with a person for a period of time. So sort of the rule of thumb is 6 feet, which is 2 meters. If you have a contact with a person for a period of time, 10 or 15 minutes is what is, you know, been shown in terms of sort of a duration that it really increases your risk. That is, you know, the type of situation that you really want to avoid. when you're in the general public. So hence, if you can do social distancing, maintain more than 6 feet away from people if you're going to be around people for a period of time, wear a mask. And again, a lot has been made, I think appropriately, to say the mask protects other people from you. And that if we're all doing that, I think that we're protecting each other. So if you can do those 2 things, that's really the first and fundamental thing that you should be doing to really protect yourself in the community. Surfaces are important, and so I'm going to end with talking about hand hygiene. The way that virus that's on a surface gets from you into your body is through contaminated hands almost always. And so that's going to be if you have your hands touch a surface and then you touch your nose, touch your mouth, rub your eye, that's how you're inoculating yourself. So if you're washing your hands frequently, that you are really doing the lion's share of risk mitigation. We talked a little bit about survival of viruses on surfaces. This comes up in the context often of shopping. When you're out shopping, what are you doing? So a couple things. So the first thing is just be really attentive to high touch surface areas. It's what the way we call it in infection control. And so in shopping, it would be door handles and grocery carts and things like that. The grocery stores I've been to, most of them have automatic doors. You're not touching door handles pretty often. You are touching carts. And what I've seen is that they usually have people that are cleaning the carts between patrons to make sure that those are clean. And if that's not happening, or if you want to be super diligent, if you want to use a wipe, that is the first surface that I would be cleaning, would be the handles of a grocery bag or a grocery cart, a basket or a cart. And then, I think people can get wrapped up and will become a little bit OCD in terms of picking up products. But I actually still, going back to sort of that first principle, person-to-person transmission, I think the thing that you really want to do in the grocery store is making sure that you're maintaining social distancing and making sure that you're wearing a mask and, hopefully recognizing that other people are wearing their masks when they're grocery shopping. If somebody's not wearing a mask, that's a person I may be spending a little bit farther time away from, or maybe selecting a different aisle. And again, I just collect your groceries as you would normally. Have them checked out and bagged, as I've seen in most places. There's sneeze guard and barriers that are often between the grocery clerks now and between you. Collect your groceries, take them home, and put them away. There has been a lot of discussion. I've seen news segments about how to disinfect your bags and things like that. I'm not sure that's really needed. I think the most important thing is after you put away your groceries, wash your hands. So if you wash your hands again and again, you're going to be doing the risk mitigation. Washing with soap and water is fine. It's perfectly fine. It disrupts the virus and washes it away. If you don't have that, just use alcohol hand rub, some Purell or these other products, and that will disrupt the virus itself too. It's a really wimpy virus, so if you do that, I think you're doing what you need to do to protect yourself.
All right. Yeah, I've definitely seen grocery stores be very conscientious about limiting the spread and wiping down all the carts and whatnot, which I really appreciate. And I honestly try to go to the grocery stores that I know have been taking those steps, just because I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get my roommates or my family sick. So I think everyone's in the same boat. So thank you so much, Dr. Sifri, for joining us and giving us a great rundown of the overview. To our listeners, I hope this is informative. Stay safe and healthy, and remember to wash your hands. Thank you.
Remember to wash your hands.